Welcome back to On Tap Bets, presented by On Tap Sportsnet. He's Joey Ricotta. I'm Iowa Zach, and we have a stacked slate. Probably the best slate we've had so far for college football. Week 9 coming up this week. So we're going to run down some of our best bets for this week. Before we do, just a reminder, On Tap Sportsnet has a partnership with Bet Rivers. And as part of that partnership, our listeners can get a free first-time deposit match of up to $250 just by going to betrivers.com and putting in promo code ONTAP.
Just to get a free first-time deposit match.
Promo code ONTAP. Joey, my man, it's been a good week. How you doing? Welcome back.
Good, brother. Good. Before I so rudely interrupted your introduction by accidentally clicking the stream that we're on and making the noise go off on through everybody's speakers, double. It's like you're on an echo for a second. Yeah, man, I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm flying high. I actually just kicked off my betting week with a nice win. I had the Packers plus 6.5. We're here tonight to talk just about college football. We'll be back tomorrow night to talk about some NFL, but I had to kick that off. I'm feeling good. I went into that game tonight feeling weirdly confident in the Packers to cover that. I thought it was an overreaction, and then turned out all right. It was a great game, weird finish, but hey, want some money to start the week, so I'm pumped and ready to transition here to a little bit of college football. Before we jump in, I want to know how'd you turn out last week in terms of college?
Yeah, pretty good, man. All in all, I mean, I think the games that we talked about and discussed on the show went pretty well for me, and I know for the most part they went well for you too, because I think we were on the same side with a lot of the games last week. As far as the marquee matchups that we decided to discuss. And football or NFL was pretty good too for the most part. As far as props go, I think I was 4-1 with the article, and we'll talk about it more tomorrow when we break down NFL, of course, but there were some things that I crossed off the list that, I probably already put bets in earlier in the week, but later on, you got some weather concerns and stuff and switched up some things. But, yeah, man, I mean, all in all, though, it was a pretty solid week last week.
Yeah, I made a commitment to myself. I'm not doing honorable mentions anymore because I went 5-1 on the games we broke down for college football last week. Fucking killed it. The only game I lost was my lock of the week, which was Purdue to cover against Wisconsin. That didn't happen. But the honorable mentions that I threw out at the end of the show absolutely killed me. I lost all but one of those. So I'm gonna stick to the games we break down this week. I'm not gonna have any honorable mentions. I'm kind of a superstitious kind of person, right? So for some reason that killed me last week. I'm gonna stay away from that. I'm gonna stick to the games we break down this week. But so I can't complain about that. The deep dive analysis games I did pretty well on, but my quick honorable mentions didn't work out for me. So whatever. Bounce back this week. And like I said, man, we have a stacked slate this week. I am so pumped about college football this week. We've got some hellacious matchups. This is definitely the best slate we've had so far since you and I have been doing the show. Do you agree?
100%. And I think that's what makes it not only great that we're talking about it, but also it was really hard this week for me. I'll just speak on a personal note. Breaking these games down, it was a little bit of an extra effort, I think. And I mean, not to say that means that I'm going to be on the right side of this, because I have no fucking idea. And that's basically what I mean by it was a tough slate. And that's what makes it incredible, because these are the weeks that, as a college football fan or just football fan in general, you want to tune in for, because we have no idea what to expect this weekend.
Right. Absolutely. So with that, let's jump right in. And I'm going to start actually with what I consider kind of the marquee matchup of the week. And we've got a lot of good games, but I think Michigan at Michigan State, Michigan ranked number 6, Michigan State at number 8 right now. I think this to me is the game I'm most excited for. So in this game, you've got Michigan going to Michigan State, going to East Lansing, laying 4 points. The over-under is 50.5. Both these teams, Joey, 7-0. with huge implications, not only in the Big Ten, but in the overall college playoff picture. I'm super excited for this game. I'm going to kick this one off because I love this matchup. A battle of two really good rushing teams. I mean, you've got Michigan here, just absolutely killing it on the ground, leading the Big Ten right now with 253.3 yards per game. What they're doing with that double-headed monster of Hassan Haskins and Blake Corum has just been beyond impressive. Each of those guys have 10 touchdowns on the season. And then you've got Michigan State on the other side, another great rushing team, 6th in the Big Ten, 202 rushing yards per game. You've got Kenneth Walker, the third on that team right now, getting 6th best odds for Heisman. I mean, so you've got some electric guys running the ball. Walker's got another 10 touchdowns to his name. But what makes this game interesting for me, Joey, is that both of these teams have been pretty successful at stopping the run as well. So Michigan, you've got 150 yards allowed per game on the ground, which is 4th best in the Big Ten. Michigan State, 120, not far behind them. To me, Joey, when I looked at this one, the difference to me was the defense in the passing game. Michigan State, man, this is their weakness. This is where they falter. They've given up 286 passing yards per game, which is dead last in the Big Ten. On the flip side, Michigan giving up 182, 4th place in the Big Ten. So, I mean, you've got quite the dichotomy there. I'm not saying Michigan is excellent at throwing the ball. They haven't had to so far this year. You've got Cade McNamara, been very serviceable, just over 1,000 yards already, 5 TDs on the season. But what I think I pulled out of this is that when Michigan has to, they have thrown the ball pretty well. McNamara has had back-to-back games of 250-plus yards through the air against Wisconsin and Nebraska, a couple decent defenses there. I really wanted to lean Michigan on this, Joey, but what gave me pause was when I flipped back to Michigan State's defense, and while they've given up some yards, they lead the Big Ten in sacks right now. They cause havoc for quarterbacks. So I fell on the total on this one. I'm going to go the under, 50.5. All that stuff I talked about, I think these are two teams that are going to try to run the ball down each other's throat. And I think I like the under on this. When you look at the last 4 matchups against these teams, 3 have gone under. So I'm leaning under here, Joey. I'm curious to hear what you're saying.
No, I probably would lean that way as well, and I might even wind up tailing you on that. To your point, I think that's exactly what we're looking at here with these two monsters of rushing attacks. I mean, you got a Heisman candidate on one side, like you said, with Kenneth Walker, Blake Corum, and Hassan Haskins. These guys combined to run for over 1,330 yards and 20 touchdowns so far this season. So, I mean, it's really an attack that Michigan has, too, on the other side, and it can't be discounted just because of the big name on the other side with Kenneth Walker. But we look at it, Michigan quietly has the second fewest points per game allowed. Michigan State ranks 21st in that category. What I was really looking at, too, was offensive drive efficiency. Michigan's 10th, and Michigan State is 51st. So I thought that was a little bit of a discrepancy there, and that was somewhere where I was looking at. And not that 51st is bad by any means. When you're talking about 130 teams, that's not bad for drive efficiency. But I just think that Michigan, it speaks to how well they've played this year. And they've actually, I'm looking at it, and you look at Michigan State's schedule. Who have they actually played? I mean, Miami was supposed to be good. It turns out they're not. They're not a good team. I mean, you just look at what they've done this season. I don't know, who they've actually played. I mean, Peyton Thorne is playing pretty well for the most part. You talked about the passing defense with Michigan State. It's not good. I just think that if Harbaugh wants to open it up, he can. Like you said with McNamara, they can do that. And I don't know. I mean, Michigan has at least proven that they've been able to beat someone like Wisconsin. I mean, I don't know. And McNamara has actually been throwing more, and he's not being super conservative with this offense recently. So, I mean, Michigan State, 126th in passing yards per game allowed. I can't see myself betting on Michigan State here, even at home, getting the points. I think Michigan's more talented. They're more experienced. I think they're going to get it done here. I might tail you on the total with the underplay, but I'm gonna lay it here with the Wolverines.
Yeah, I have zero qualms with that. I would easily. I actually thought about double playing this game. I did that a couple other places that we'll talk about this week, so I didn't want to do it here. I'm with you, and I love the point you make about scheduling too. I mean, you're right. Michigan State hasn't proven it. I guess I get nervous, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. But in these rivalry games, right? These in-state rivalry games, they're so fluky, man. All these kids are pumped up. They're ready to go. I just feel like there's another level to this where I'm always scared to bet spreads on these rivalry games. I don't know.
Yeah. And that's probably going to lead us perfectly into the next game here because
yes, it will. Number 9, Iowa. Our Hawkeyes, Joey, going to Wisconsin this week. Wisconsin laying 3.5, and the over/under is 36.5 on this one. I'm going to let you kick this one off this week. I want to hear your thoughts on our Hawkeyes before I jump in.
Oh man, what a debacle, right? Fucking destroyed. What the hell happened against Purdue, man? I
don't know. That was my lock of the week, man, and I was embarrassed by it.
Unbelievable. Just, I mean, I had people that I'm close to, and myself included, that had parlays tied in with just their money line. Like, talk about not covering the spread. How about the money line? Like, you can't even win the game. It's just ridiculous. Yeah. But on the other hand, Iowa, they've covered a 71% clip this year. So are they a gambler's darling this year? No, because a lot of the sharp bettors have actually been betting against them and losing their ass this season with Iowa because of the fluky turnovers and blah, blah, blah. We can go down that whole road. But no Riley Moss again this week. So that's a problem. That's an issue. But Wisconsin doesn't really pass the ball well at all. I mean, you look at Graham Mertz. What has he done this season? He has not shown really anything. I mean, I know that Wisconsin, they won. They kicked Purdue's ass last week. But this is just it's a classic bounce back spot for Iowa. Just like last week was a classic letdown spot for Purdue. Just like Penn State and Iowa game, it was a classic letdown spot for Iowa coming off of the Penn State game to play Purdue. So, I mean, letdowns and bounce backs, that's the theme I'm going to stick with here. I don't know how. I mean, Wisconsin has a legit defense. They really, really have a legit defense. They don't allow anything on the ground. Spencer Petras in this offense, I don't know how they're going to move the ball, but what Wisconsin does well, or what Iowa does well, Wisconsin's terrible at. Now, you look at turnover margin. Wisconsin's not good at that. Wisconsin is tied for the second most giveaways per game, and Iowa has the best turnover margin per game. So the thing is, Iowa, they lost the turnover battle versus Purdue. Petras threw 4 picks, so, I mean, that's a huge part of that game. Wisconsin's been getting better at taking care of the ball. Graham Mertz has only 1 pick in the last 4 games, but they've been losing fumbles. So, the Badgers offense getting more conservative, obviously. That's why they protected the ball better. Only 8 pass attempts versus Purdue for Graham Mertz for 52 fucking yards.
Yeah.
This run-heavy approach, they've been killing it with Braylon Allen and Ches Malusi, but, each having 140 yards versus Purdue. And second game this season where both had at least 130 rushing yards and a touchdown. So they're getting it done on the ground. Now, you can't say that they haven't. But I don't know, man. Michigan, we saw what happened when they played teams that can stop the run, and Iowa's one of those teams. Michigan, 43 rushing yards versus Michigan, 22nd in rushing yards per game allowed. That's Michigan. Notre Dame versus them, 78 rushing yards. 29th in rushing yards per game allowed. Now, they also lost the turnover battle in both those games, but it's just a bad combination of things working against the Badgers here. So, the Badgers are one of my teams. This. Iowa's first, and this team was literally just the number 2 ranked team in the country, and Wisconsin isn't ranked. Yeah. So I'm not overthinking it. Give me the Hawks. Catching the points, and I love the hook on this. So, yeah, I'm going with the Hawks. Sorry, that was a long explanation for this, but Yeah.
No, man. No. You explained it very well. I am 100% with you to spoil the surprise at the end. I'm taking the Hawks as well. I mean, everybody talks about this Wisconsin rushing game, right? And I can't take anything away from him. Second best rushing in the Big Ten, 218 yards a game. And Chaz Malusi has been awesome, 5 yards per carry. But listen, man, these Hawkeyes have only allowed one team to rush over 100 yards, and that was Penn State. And the caveat with that is that 40 of those yards came on Sean Clifford scrambles, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, when you look at pure rushing, whatever. Graham Mertz isn't rushing the ball. He's not scrambling against this Iowa team. And when you look at this Wisconsin defense as an overall, even their pass defense on paper looks great. 169 yards per game and through the air, which is second in the Big Ten. But when you really break it down game by game, honestly, this Wisconsin pass defense comes across as almost a boom or bust, Joey.
Yeah, they are.
They allowed, just 67 to 87 yards, like in that range against teams like Eastern Michigan, Illinois, Army. But when they played Penn State, Notre Dame, Michigan, Purdue, some high quality teams right there, they allowed 219 minimum up to all the way up to almost 260 yards. I'm not saying Spencer Petras is Sean Clifford. I'm not saying he's Jack Cohn. I'm not saying he's these guys. He's not Adrian O'Connell.
He might be Jack Cohn.
Well, good call. But he's not Adrian O'Connell, but he's closer to that group of teams than he is to Eastern Michigan, Illinois, and Army, in my opinion, right? So I think Iowa can have some success through the air with this, leaning on some yards after the catch, some tight end plays. Yes, Riley Moss is out again, which gives me a little bit of concern, but you mentioned it. Wisconsin's passing offense is second to last in the Big Ten in yards. I'm not worried about this Wisconsin team. This isn't Purdue. I mean, Bell and Adrian O'Connell ate up these Hawkeyes, but that's a pretty damn elite pass attack.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about Wisconsin on that. To throw a stat out there, in the last 4 matchups between Iowa and Wisconsin, the road teams won. I don't know if that means anything, but it's kind of a fun little nugget to play on. I'm taking the Hawkeyes. Give me Kirk off a bye. He's going to get these guys back in shape. That offensive line against Purdue was trash. Mm-hmm. Kirk's going to reset the schemes. He's going to let them play up front. He's going to get these guys ready to go. And honestly, Joey, this is the first time I'll throw out some betting trends. It's not just me being biased here. I was getting 74% of the bets right now and 76% of the money. Give me the Hawkeyes, baby.
Let's ride. Caw-caw!
Caw-caw! All right, moving on. Number 1, Georgia, laying 14 points against Florida. The over-under in this one's 51. Georgia's at 7-0 coming in this. We all know number 1 team in the country. Florida at 4-3. I'm going to start with Florida a little bit. I can't take away from Florida's offense, man. They really have ran the ball really well this year. Mm-hmm. Second in the SEC in rushing, 255 almost yards per game, 6.3 yards per carry on the ground, which is best in the SEC. I mean, they really have a bevy of running backs back there. But their leading rusher is Emory Jones, their quarterback, with almost 500 rushing yards. The problem is they're not going to do that this week, Joey. I mean, this is clearly, we talk about it almost every week because Georgia's, in our lineup. It's the best defense in the country by far. 64 yards rushing per game. Now, Georgia, on the other hand, is going to be able to rush on this Florida team. 7th in the SEC, Florida is allowing 141 yards per game. And then last week against LSU, just shit the bed. Tyrion David Price, 287 yards and 3 touchdowns last week for LSU against Florida. Wow. It was wild. Now you look, neither of these teams pass at a high rate. Georgia, really neither of them have to, right? Georgia last in the SEC with less than 24 pass attempts per game. But when you look at it, when they do, they're efficient. Second in the SEC in completion at 69.5. So I like Georgia here. I'm gonna keep riding Georgia until they prove me wrong. They're 5-2 against the spread. And a lot of those spreads have been big spreads, right? Big numbers. 14 on the road at Florida, in my gut feels like a lot of points, but they haven't proven that they can't, right? I just think Florida's significantly overmatched in this one. I am, though, also playing the under. These two teams are a combined 9-5 to the under. Florida 4-0 to the under at home. And then you look on the Georgia side, 3 straight games going under, and all those totals were less than 49 points against Kentucky, Auburn, and Arkansas. So I'm actually playing 2 on this. I like Georgia laying the points, and I like the under. What's your play, Joe?
I'm with you on the under. I probably am going to end up playing that as well. But I think we're on different sides here. So this is where we're going to separate here with the show. And I love it. We got to do this at least once on the show.
Hell yeah. Yeah, we can't agree all the time. That's boring.
That's super boring. World's largest cocktail party, outdoor cocktail party this weekend with Georgia and Florida. So, I mean, both these teams just despise each other. Their fan bases, they hate each other. And head coach Dan Mullen on Florida's side, it sounds like he's going to stick with this like 2 quarterback thing that he's got going with Emory Jones and Anthony Richardson. But, I mean, Gator fans, they've been just pining for Anthony Richardson because he's looked so much better. He led the Gators to 28 second-half points versus LSU after Jones was pretty ineffective, really, to say the least. I mean, all that said, I think Richardson, it might be a little bit of coach speak here because I don't really think the Gators are really playing for all that much this year. Dan Mullen could be on the hot seat, honestly. Richardson's probably going to play more snaps this week. Like, if we really think about it, it's about time that he plays more snaps than Jones. Does it matter against Georgia's D? Probably not. I mean, they're elite. They're first in the country, like you said. The 2 through 5 defenses and points per game allowed aren't even close to where they are in points per game allowed. 6.6 for Georgia. The 2 through 5 teams, Michigan, Penn State, Iowa, San Diego State, are all 14 points per game allowed or more. Like, it's not even close what they're doing. The Dogs are just head and shoulders above everybody. I mean, and after bashing Florida's offense for not making this decision, or the head coach Dan Mullen not just going with Emory Jones, like you said, they still rank 3rd in the nation in yards per play, 23rd in points per game, 3rd in rushing yards per game, 1st in yards per carry. I mean, this team really does run the ball really well. Georgia's offense, I don't know. Stetson Bennett, JT Daniels, we have no idea. Is Daniels going to play? Like, it sounds like it's probably going to be Stetson Bennett again, but like, there's still a lot of conflict here with there's like rumors that Daniels is probably going to take over the job if he's healthy. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen here. Bennett was benched against this team last year against Florida. I don't know if Florida solved all their run stopping issues from a week ago with Tyrion Davis-Price, but coming out of the bye, I don't know. Georgia puts up 30 points a game on just about everybody, it seems like. It's even though they're like, we can say what we want about the passing game maybe not being like elite. James Cook, Zamir White, like, these guys are just good on the ground. And they've been getting away with being less than explosive through the air. So, alongside Pitt, Georgia's covering by the largest average number of points too, 11.9. I don't know what the biggest factor is here. Like, my gut, like, something just keeps like itching at me to take Florida. And like, I don't know what it is. I just think that they'll keep the game close. Like, eventually Georgia has to be one of these big teams that just doesn't cover like a game that we expect them to. Like, this is a game that I would expect them to cover, but we've seen it with like Bama. We've seen it with some of these other teams where they just don't cover one of these big spreads and call it the home field advantage. Whatever it is, I think maybe off the bye week, I don't know. Maybe they'll stop the run enough, and at home, I don't know what it is. I'm sticking with my gut. I found Florida plus 14 in the hook, 14.5. So I think they keep it close enough. It's not something I love, but I'm going to go with Florida.
Yeah. Sometimes you just got to go with your gut, man. I hear you. And I was nervous about this one, that I'm putting too much stock in that last game for Florida, but we'll see. We'll see. You're absolutely right, though. These heavyweight teams, just like Alabama, they have an off week, right? This could be Georgia's. So
that's what it feels like, only because like everybody and their mom is expecting Georgia to just blast everybody right now, right?
yeah,
It's exactly when you think that they're going to blast somebody when they slip up.
right, for sure. Okay. All right, moving on. Ole Miss, number 10, going to Auburn, number 18. Auburn here laying 2.5, and the over-under is 66. You go ahead and start with this one, Joey.
Yeah, so I mean, we look at this. Ole Miss is still in line for the SEC championship. I'm not sure like it's realistic for Auburn, even if they win this game, that they get to the SEC championship game. Ole Miss is dealing with a lot of injuries here. Starting offensive lineman, starting tight end, the starting wide receiver. That's what Ole Miss is looking at. I mean, defensive back Miles Battle, who signed in 2018 as a receiver, was moved back to a receiver. He's been playing defensive back. Was moved back to a receiver against LSU. Kind of speaks to their injury issues right now. I mean, Lane Kiffin said this week that they're still very banged up at that position. So I don't know how like explosive they're going to be through the air here against Auburn, despite having, one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best quarterback in the country, in Matt Corral, one of my favorites. Like, I don't know. Auburn owns Ole Miss. They're 34-10 in the series history. So, and not that means anything. Like, it's not predictive of what's going to happen. They've won the last 5 meetings, but that's not predictive, obviously, at all. It really means nothing from this matchup, but it just kind of shows that they kind of own them. Bo Nix has been playing much better this year. I mean, I can't say that he hasn't. And I was one of the biggest critics of him coming into this year. You know that. I mean, especially his road struggles. It's kind of eliminated him this year. He's looked better, and they're battle tested. Auburn is battle tested. They look decent against Georgia, although like the score doesn't show it. Ole Miss ranks 103rd in opponent drive yards gained based on available yards. That's not good. Offensive yards per play, Ole Miss has the edge. Defensive yards per play, though, Auburn has a big edge, 36th to 67th. I don't know. I think at home, which has been like where Bo Nix typically plays better, at least throughout his career, I think Auburn should be able to win this game. And I mean, the spread is tempting enough. I don't love it, but Ole Miss's injury issues, that's kind of where I'll be. I think I'm gonna lay it here with the 2.5 with Auburn.
Yeah, this one gave me pause at first. I will give credit. Auburn's D is much better. I mean, their rush D, 125 rushing yards allowed per game. It's 5th best in the SEC. Ole Miss, as great as they are on defense, they're just as bad as great as they are on offense, they're just as bad on defense. 181 yards allowed on the ground and 241 yards through the air. I just can't get past how good this Ole Miss offense is. And I know there's injury concerns, right? And I'll get to that. But, it's not just Matt Corral through the air.
Yeah.
It's him on the ground, right? And even if he is limited, it doesn't matter. I mean, you look at last week, he was limited against LSU. He only ran the ball 24 yards last week, and that's significantly down from what he had. But they were picked up by Snoop Carter, Parrish Jr., and Jerrion Ely, who all had a great game as well. They still rushed for 266 yards against LSU last week. I talked about it last week. Matt Corral, man, this guy's hunting for a Heisman. He's gonna play. He's gonna be good. This offense is just too damn good. 541 total yards of offense per game, first in the SEC, 41.9 points a game, seventh in the country. I just think, Auburn's D is good, but they're outmatched here, and they don't have the offense to keep up. I'm taking Ole Miss money line, Joey. The 2.5, that's fine, whatever it is. But I'm taking the money line here and try to build up my bet slip a little bit. I will say for the listeners, if the injuries scare you, there's a total play here that the sharps are all over, and that's the under. 60% of the bets on the under, 97% of the money from sharps coming in on the under. When you look at these two teams, the last 3 straight games they've played have all gone under. And 2 of those have been a lower total than this 66. So this is a big number with some questions on injuries. I looked at the weather. It's going to be 56 degrees, for Alabama. That's, in the 50s, cold, overcast, a little potential for rain. With the injuries, I could see an under being a play here. So if you're nervous, but I am taking Ole Miss, and fuck the points. Give me the money line.
I love it. Dude, fuck it, man. Like, yeah, if it's especially a short spread like that, you don't gain anything from taking really plus 2.5 plus 2.5. Like you barely gain anything at that point. Like,
yeah. So I've always lived by a rule, Joey, with betting. If it's a 1.5 point spread, I just take the money line. 2.5. I think about it, but more times than not, I'll just take the money line. Yeah,
I'm with you, and I'm probably taking that under as well. I love that.
Yeah. I like that play as well. All right, Penn State going to Ohio State this week. Ohio State, number 5 in the country, laying 18.5 against the number 20 team in Penn State. The over under 60 on this one. OSU's rolling, man. Ohio State's rolling. 4 straight wins, but not only that, or I should say 4 straight covers as big-ass favorites, Joey.
Yeah.
So 18.5 points for me against a ranked opponent is a lot. But, man, 4 straight covers with spreads anywhere from 15.5 to 48.5. Those were Akron, Rutgers, Maryland, and Indiana. So, don't put too much on that. But, man, Ohio State, this is the best passing offense in the Big Ten, one of the best in the country at 352 yards per game. CJ Stroud, we're hearing a lot about this kid. Third shortest odds for Heisman right now at plus 550. Already pushing 2,000 yards, 22 touchdowns to 3 interceptions, and a QBR of 192. Out of this fucking world is what CJ Stroud is right now.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other side, Penn State's got a pretty good defense when it comes to the passing game. Just 178 yards per game is third best in the Big Ten. Man, last week scared me. Penn State sacked 4 times against Illinois. Couldn't move the ball against Illinois. This was by the way, I didn't even mention this loss to Illinois being one of the wildest games we've ever seen with 9 overtimes with these new rules.
And one of the dumbest.
I don't know if you had a chance to catch that. I didn't watch the game live, but I went back and recapped it. What a mess, man, with that new overtime rule. 9 overtimes. You got to go for 2-point conversions after the third overtime. What a joke, man. Let these kids play football the way it was intended. But
yeah,
I got to take Ohio State here. I just think they are very much outmatched Penn State. I'll just leave it at that. I'm taking Ohio State. I'm laying the points.
I'm with you, dude. I'm with you. Let's ride on this one together too. Listen, nothing pisses me off more than taking Ohio State in anything, because I don't want to root for Ohio State ever. Like, I'm just sick and tired of them winning all the time. Like, let's be real. But they are really Penn State's outmatched, and I did get a chance to watch that game against Illinois, and it was as much of a disaster as you mentioned. First of all, the overtime rules are just absolutely ridiculous. Let's be real. When you're relying on one play to decide a game, like a 2-point conversion, and then they can't even fucking do a 2-point conversion for how many times in a row? And then they're running across the field to do it again after like 2 plays or 1 play or whatever it was. Like, it was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. And maybe it was entertaining for some people. For me, I'm just like, can we get this shit over with already?
Yeah,
like,
it was a clown. Yeah, it was a joke.
Just ridiculous. I wanted to like, go do something for a minute before the second games just started. And then I'm like, you know what? I got to click on the second batch of games here because this game has just lasted all the way until like the second quarter of those games. But anyways, I digress, whatever. Ohio State's offensive line, 13th in sack rate. Penn State, 69th in sack rate for the defensive line. Ohio State has an edge there. Power success rate, 3rd offensive line for Ohio State. Penn State's D-line, 113th in power success rate. Not good. Not great, Bob. Ohio State offensive line stuff rate, 1st. Penn State defensive line stuff rate, 33rd. Penn State offensive power success rate, offensive line, 129th out of 130 teams. And Ohio State's power success rate for defensive line tied for 8th. It doesn't get much more clear to me on either of the sides of the battles. You talked about how they're rolling right now. They are. Stroud obviously started out the season not playing so well. There's talks about him being injured to start the season. So there's that too. And then getting familiar with a new system. OSU, 15th in yards per carry allowed, 3.2. Last 3 games, only 2.1 yards per carry allowed. 3rd best, right around Georgia territory, right? I mean, you got Travion Henderson has been unreal, 8.8 yards per carry on the season. J.K. Dobbins, he's got the most rushing yards in the season in Ohio State history. Over 2,000 in 2019. But Dobbins averaged 6.7 yards per carry. If they actually gave Henderson the amount of touches and carries, he'd smash that. He would absolutely smash that, but they haven't needed to. I mean, the freshman, they're not going to overuse him. That guy's insane. I don't care how good Penn State's defense is, and they are, but the offensive line compared to their defensive line, and then also him playing the way that he's playing. Also, there's rumors about James Franklin, head coach of Penn State, being out the door, going and taking some of these other jobs, one of these other jobs that are available right now. I just don't see. I cannot. It's more the same for the Nittany Lions, I think, this week. They're just outmatched. And Franklin, he hired a new agent. So the rumors, obviously, there's something to those rumors, I think. Why do you hire a new agent midseason if you don't actually plan on leaving? What does that say to your players? Give me OSU laying the points.
Yeah, 100%. Ohio State, 2nd in the Big Ten in sacks with 24. If Penn State couldn't handle Illinois' defensive front, they're sure as hell not handling this one.
Yeah. It's pretty clear to me. And it's weird because as like convicted as I am on this play, like it's one of those games where it's like, what is there? Are we going to see some fluke shit? Like it's a Big Ten game, and I don't know, man. I just feel really good about the Buckeyes out here.
Yeah, I mean, it is an 18.5 point spread. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of points. But I'm glad we're both aligned on this one.
Yeah, same.
All right, jumping back to the SEC for the final game of our slate that we're going to break down. Number 12, Kentucky at Mississippi State. This was crazy, Joey. I know you and I, we kind of prepped for this show throughout the week a little bit. Yesterday when we were talking, we were sending lines back and forth, and Kentucky was minus 1.5 at that point. So we started prepping towards that. Next thing you know, today we're prepping, and the line had swapped. Mississippi State minus 1.5, or -1. We're gonna for the point of the show, we're gonna go with the current line, which on a consensus is Mississippi State -1. Over unders 47. Joey, go ahead and tell me your play on this one.
Yeah, I mean, have we mentioned how good of a slate this is?
Yeah, for sure, right?
I'm just gonna say that right now. Like, just the fact that you were talking about how the line keeps bouncing back and forth. Like, I've seen pick'em, I've seen -1, +1, blah blah. Like, that just speaks to how like big this slate is, and Kentucky being, a 12th ranked team. Mississippi State's, this is another great matchup. This is going to fly under the radar, I think, compared to some of the other ones. Like Mississippi State, they've played tough this year against everyone outside of Bama. That 49-9 slaughter that kind of it sits a little uneasy, I think, but it's Bama, so I think you can get a little bit of a pass there. The game against La Tech was a little bit of a mystery, playing so close against them, but it was the first game of the season. So, again, a little bit of a pass there. Beat a good NC State team. Barely lost to Memphis and LSU. I mean, although LSU hasn't been that good either since then, but beat A&M and smoked Vandy. Mississippi State stops the run well. Less than 100 yards per game, allowed 10th. Kentucky stops the run well too, though, 18th rushing per game. So Mississippi State versus the pass, 71st in yards per game. Kentucky versus the pass, 36th in yards per game allowed. I don't know. Mississippi State with Will Rogers throwing the ball a ton. He likes to utilize the short passing attack, right? And they throw the ball more than any team in the country. Their passing play percentage, they throw the ball a ton. Mississippi State does. And Mekhi Polk, he's a stud with the ball in his hands. That LSU team, though, that Mississippi State barely lost to, Kentucky smoked them, right? Kentucky absolutely smoked them. And they weren't horrible against Georgia either. I mean, I know 30-13 looks bad, but we just got done talking about how insane Georgia is. So, I mean, anybody's going to look bad most of the time against them. Mississippi State is 58th or worse in offensive drive efficiency, available yards rate, and yards per play. Kentucky is 44th or better in all of those. Defensive side of the ball, Kentucky is 28th or better in basically all of the same metrics that I just mentioned. Mississippi State is 24th or worse in all of them. But where lies the discrepancy to me is defensive yards per play, drive yards gained per offensive play. 58th for Mississippi State. Kentucky is 20th in that category on offense. I've liked this Kentucky team for a while, and I think, honestly, I think they'll get enough pressure on Will Rogers behind guys like J.J. Weaver. So I'm taking the points with Kentucky, but let's just, with your strategy earlier, I like the money line here with Kentucky.
Wow. Okay. All right, we're going to be on different sides of this one, Joey, too. First of all, let me say I love this game because I love these matchups where it's the battles of two completely different offenses, and that's what you have here. I mean, Mississippi State, best passing offense in the SEC right now at 375 yards per game, rounding up. I mean, you mentioned Will Rogers, already well over 2,500 yards on the season, 18 touchdowns. Fifth in the country in overall in passing yards, and I think that's second in Power 5. So, I mean, these are, just an elite passing offense, but last in the SEC in rushing, 48.7 yards per game. These guys just they live and die through the air, and that's cool when you have Will Rogers. Kentucky, on the other hand, they're running the ball. Over 190 yards per game. I mean, solid rush game here. Neither of these teams have an outstanding pass defense. You mentioned it as well, 7th and 10th respectively in yards per game through the air. The difference in this game, Joey, is Mississippi State allows just 93 yards on the ground per game, right? And so you have Kentucky's strength on offense against Mississippi's strength on defense. I think, to me, that's the difference in this game. I'm taking Mississippi State, laying the points. There's some trends here that made me a little nervous. Kentucky has done nothing or almost nothing but cover this year, 6-1 against the spread. Mississippi State hasn't been that great, 3-4 against the spread. So a little bit of a trend issue there that made me sweat a little bit, but I'm pretty comfortable with my pick on Mississippi on this. The Sharps are following too. Mississippi State getting just 24% of the bet, so the public really likes Kentucky in this one. But when you look at the money, 54% of the money's on Mississippi State. So
I will admit, not to cut you off, I will admit that I might have some bias here, or like blindness here, a blind spot for Kentucky, because they've treated me really well this season. So it makes sense that you're, and I saw that as well, the rate that they're covering at, but it might be a little bit of a blind spot for me because they've treated me so well, but I don't know. Yeah, we'll see how this game it's going to be a great game.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to watching this one.
Absolutely. And you said it right. This is an under the radar game, and absolutely should be a pick 'em the way it's jumping around. But we got a guy here, James Lill. He's been chiming in on the chat a little bit. He's saying everybody's saying it's a trap game for Kentucky. James, I agree with you, my man. Also, James, thanks for the subscribe, man. We really appreciate it. Glad you liked the show. I'm going to take a screenshot of the parlay you threw in there. There's a lot of info in there, but I want to kind of take a minute and run through that, and I'll maybe reach out to you outside of the show. But appreciate the listen. Joey, my man, that is the last game of the slate. So I want to move on to our Kraken Locks of the week. So we went through 6 games. Let me pause there. Any honorable mentions for you? I mentioned at the top of the show, I am not doing any honorable mentions because fuck that. I'm superstitious. No more honorable mentions for me. You go ahead and shout out yours. I think you do have some.
If you have let's just say this. If you have a losing week this week, which I hope you don't, but we are on opposite sides on a lot of this, but listen, I still don't wish it upon you to fucking lose. Like, let's be real. I want you to make some money this week. But if you do have a losing week from just the show bets, will you include honorable mentions next week?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. At that point, it's a okay. Yeah. We're good.
Yeah, just randomness. And now you're superstition. You're getting back on track then at that point. Okay. So, anyways, all right, honorable mentions. I like Rutgers laying 1.5 is what I got it at. I'm not sure what it's at now. I did not even check that before the show. I really should have done that. Rutgers laying 1.5 against Illinois. Listen, Illinois, they beat Penn State. Maybe Penn State isn't as good as we thought. Maybe Sean Clifford was hurt more than we thought. Mm-hmm. He was able to play that game, but they looked awful on offense, and they ran the ball all over them. This Illinois team hasn't changed. This Illinois team is still horrible. I think Rutgers, I don't think they're great. I don't think they're very good, but they're better than this Illini team. Like, it's just it seems like such an overreaction. That this spread is just, I don't understand it. I really don't understand it. I'm taking Rutgers here in this spot. Also, Oklahoma, I believe it's -20 now. They're laying a lot in a runaway. Texas Tech, they just fired their coach. It doesn't get it's pretty bottom. It bottomed out right here, and most of the time, you would say that that's a bad thing. Like when they fire the coach, if you're going to take the other side, because that team would be motivated. Like, you should probably take that side. But Oklahoma came out flat last week. They came out, and everybody was talking about how horrible they were last week against Kansas. You don't think that lights a fire under their ass a little bit, that they sleptwalk through that Kansas game? Oklahoma's going to win this game by more than 3 touchdowns. I truly believe that. So Rutgers and Oklahoma are my honorable mentions this week.
That Oklahoma game last week was one of my honorable mentions. I thought Edwards was gonna, light the world on fire, prove that he's the guy. That now that he had a chance to really take the reins. It was funny. I was at a bar when Kansas took the lead in that game, and the money line for Oklahoma was still like minus fucking 3,400 or something. Like, it was in the thousands. Like. And that was late in the game. I mean, later in the game. So you said it best. You said they coasted through it. It was like, just on cruise control until it's time to finally win. So
yeah,
I like that. I like that. They it was a little bit of an embarrassment. So I do like that play.
Isn't that messed up though, that you took them last week as an honorable mention and lost on it, and now I'm like, I'm gonna be the dumbass that does it again.
We'll see. We'll see. Maybe Oklahoma's our kryptonite.
Yeah. Let's hope not.
All right, man. So we ran down 6 games. You had a couple honorable mentions, but I want you to lock it in. Give me a Kraken lock of the week.
I really struggled with this. Lock. Can I go? Oh, man. I'm still deciding, honestly. I am. And we didn't even crack them. So can we crack them so I can buy myself some more time?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
This will help me buy myself some time. Let's do it. All right. So
I can give you mine.
Yeah. Why don't you start?
Ole Miss money line, baby.
I'm
serious. I love this play. I think this spread of Auburn. Auburn's defense. I said it before. Auburn's defense is good, but this Ole Miss offense is absolutely elite. I think the spread. I think Auburn being favored by 2.5 is an overreaction to Corral's ankle, which was already an issue last week leading into the LSU game. And they still overcame it, rushed for 266 yards. I think Ole Miss is a lock to win this game. So that's a lock of the week. That's a money line. That's going to win you folks some money.
Well, that's not going to be my
now
lock.
You're on the other side. So that's a difficult one for you. But
no, but I can tell you I'm not going to take the other side as a lock. I'll tell you that. If you feel so strongly convicted about it, that gives me cause for concern. I already didn't feel that great about it. So I'm going to just leave that there. And you know what? I'm going to go with a game that's off the board. Is that all right?
Sure.
One of my honorable mentions, I am going to go with Rutgers here. I do not believe, listen, Illinois' coach, he came out and basically lit a fire under those guys by addressing them in the media, saying he wasn't getting enough production by any of the recruits and talking about how he, by basically the offensive line and stuff like that last week. Nobody's doing anything for them, and they did. What happens when reality sets in and these guys are like, you know what, we kind of like partying here in Champaign and like it's just not going to happen this week again. Like Rutgers is going to come out. Love Schiano as a college football coach. Rutgers is going to get this game. I really believe that. That's going to be my lock of the week, and it's not a game that we really talked about much, obviously, but I can't. I don't feel good. The marquee matchups this week are incredible, and I just want to enjoy them. As far as my locks, I want to keep my lock record pretty strong here. I went 2-0 last week. Let's keep it rolling.
Attaboy. Yeah, I was 1-1. We'll
Sorry.
talk NFL tomorrow. No, it's all good.
I was 1-0 last week in college. Let's put it that way. That's what.
Yeah, nice. All right. As always, guys, thank you for tuning in. This is awesome. Again, this slate is stacked. I'm super pumped for this weekend, and I think we got some good plays on this stuff. So we are going to be back tomorrow to talk through the NFL slate. But until then, make sure you're going out and following us on all socials. You can follow On Tap Sportsnet on Twitter at On Tap Sportsnet. You can follow On Tap Bets at On Tap Bets. Follow Joey Ricotta at the Riot 326, and you can follow me at Iowa Zach. So hey, until next time, good luck. Happy betting. Cheers, folks.
Good luck. Crack 'em.